All right, good afternoon, everybody. So first off, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're really happy to be here to run through this subject with you guys and show you a couple of new tools that we've got to offer. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a little bit of housekeeping and some introductions to do first before we get to the content. So let's head on that direction. So I am Trevor Kuglin. I'm Director of Marketing and Product Management here at Jonas Club Software. Joined on the call today is Scott Taylor. He's the Director of Inside Sales, and Trevor Kluk, Senior Marketing Associate. Scott is going to be running through some of the applications that we're talking about today, giving you a better look and better feel for them. I'm going to be doing a little bit of narration, and then Trevor's going to be jumping in near the end of the session with some Q&A for us. And yes, there are two Trevors that work in the marketing team here. It gets confusing. So a little bit about Jonas to get started. Basically, Jonas is really made up of a number of different brands, companies, all under one umbrella working together. From a back office standpoint, we have multiple back office products, multiple online web solutions, as well as value-added solutions, two of which today we're going to be talking about, MetricsFirst and MemberInsight. From an overall perspective, when you think about Jonas Club Software and what we can really offer clubs, think of us as that one throat to choke. Our real objective is to provide software, technology solutions, both back office and front of house member facing for the entire club. So everything from accounting and finance to marina management to your spa, your fitness, food and beverage, all these different areas of the club. We want to be your single source provider for technology solutions in these areas. So a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in. You've all been muted, so lines are silent right now. We cannot hear you if you're speaking. So we do ask that all questions that you have be submitted through the questions tab that's in the little flyout menu on the right-hand side of your screen. You can also make the presentation full screen by clicking on the expand icon. As outlined there, little expand icon and the questions box at the bottom. So we'll be taking all questions at the end of the session, and we'll try and get through as many as we can, time permitting. So the agenda for today, overall, we want to talk about what business intelligence really is, how companies are currently using BI, and what are some of the things that really get missed when it comes to BI. Then we'll really get into what is MetricsFirst, what is MemberInsight, what they can do for your businesses, and then we will have our Q&A session. So let's go ahead and get started. So what really is business intelligence? Well, a lot of people tend to confuse analytics with business intelligence, and it's simply not the case. Mountains of data really mean nothing without context and some level of connection. So knowing how many members visited the club yesterday really is meaningless without context of historical averages, the ability to cross-reference the data, with spending, tenure, and other different data points. So how do we define business intelligence then? Business intelligence is defined as the deriving of actionable insights from information collected. So what does that mean? Well, give me all the spreadsheets and analysis in the world. It really doesn't make a bit of difference without the understanding of what to do with that information. Knowing how many members visited the club yesterday is really meaningless unless the context of historical averages and the ability to cross-reference that data with spending, tenure, and other data points is accessible. So ultimately, it's about gleaning insights, understanding, and hopefully actions from information that's collected about your business. So how are other companies today using BI? Well, this is actually a great example that just kind of fell into my lap a couple of weeks ago. Someone posted this on Reddit, and basically what they had done is they were searching for a flight with an airline, and they wanted to see, I guess, if the results were going to be different if they searched on different devices. As it turns out, the desktop results and the tablet results were coming up significantly differently. You can see here that the same flight for the same date and same time of day coming up at $269 on a desktop machine, whereas it's listed as at $182 on a tablet. Now, you might just think initially that this is, bad tech, something's gone wrong in the background, but actually this is a great example of how companies could use BI. So back in 2009, Orbitz was actually one of the first companies to launch a big BI initiative, and they really started looking into the spending habits and the demographics that made up people who were booking hotel rooms on their website. Interestingly enough, what they found was that Mac users on average would pay 30% more for hotel rooms than PC users. So I'm not saying that Orbitz went and did anything with this information, and I'm not necessarily saying that that particular airline was doing anything. It could have been a glitch. However, you can see how information like this can lead to very essential business decisions. How your businesses can capture this information and leverage it. It can be tremendously useful. Starbucks is another great example of a company using BI. So basically what they do is they track purchases using their loyalty card program, and then they use this information to target market back to individuals. So for example, I'm a regular Starbucks coffee drinker, but I drink their just regular drip coffee. That's all I order. I generally don't order extra food or anything like that. When I'm on the app, when I'm about to submit an order to go and pick up at one of their restaurant locations, I quite often get served additional promotions and advertisements for food and fancy drink purchases that are typically going to be a lot more than what I spend on average. What Starbucks is doing there is they're actually using machine learning and algorithms running in the background to recognize that my typical purchase is type A, and what they want to do is really capture more share of wallet for me. So they're trying to upsell me at the time of purchase. So think of it as, it's the modern day equivalent to walking through a grocery store aisle and being bombarded with magazines, gum, chips, snacks, candy, and things like that at the time of purchase. This is a really smart way that companies are capturing this data and leveraging it for their own good. American Express is another really great example. They're actually using BI to accurately predict retention issues. So they can now use their information to examine spending habits and accurately predict when one of their customers is going to become at risk, months ahead of that person actually intending on canceling the card. They then put in place their retention strategy, they get involved, they contact the customer, and hopefully save them and keep them as an account holder. So as you can see, these are some really interesting ways that big businesses are using business intelligence today. The thing is, data is everywhere. There's so much data and so many different places to pull it from, it can be very difficult. Now, Derek Johnson from Global Golf Advisors, he said that one of the biggest challenges clubs face in the quest for a better strategy is the sourcing, analysis, and visualization of important business intelligence. The problem with trying to source all of these different data feeds and all of this information on our own is that certain aspects and sometimes entire data sets can get completely missed. There's just so much data for us to crunch through. So what really gets missed? Before we get into specific data points that we often miss, I want to paint the picture a little bit here today for how much data is actually out there. So every single day, we as humanity create a lot of information. Every Instagram photo we upload, every email we send, everything we catalog on Wikipedia, our web browser history, all these things, we're accumulating and creating data that companies can technically or potentially mine for information. Every day we create 2.5 exabytes. So how much is that in realistic context? So 2.5 exabytes is about the equivalent of 250,000 libraries of Congress. In other terms, it's about 530 million streaming Justin Bieber songs. And yes, we chose this because we're in Canada. And in all actuality, it's actually 90 years of HD streaming video on YouTube. So you can see there's a tremendous amount of information when you put it in context like that gets generated every single day. So what are we missing? From a club standpoint, from a business standpoint, what are some of those areas of information that we're missing out on right now? First and foremost, utilization metrics. So how are members actually using the club? Knowing the members are frequenting the club is one thing, but developing a true understanding of how they use the club can really lead to new insights. Experiential data. What's the member experience like when they're at the club? It's often the most overlooked metric. Clubs need to really develop a better understanding of the member service experience and then put that information into action. And then finally, comparative analysis. So this is really important because it's the ability to take data points and compare them and put them into context. So for example, if a member may have spent $10,000 last month per club, your immediate response is, that's great. We love these types of members. But in context of what other members are spending and where they're spending it, it might not actually be as positive as you first think. So for example, it may have been this member's first time at the club in over a year, and the only reason they were there is because they were sponsoring the wedding of a cousin. So that's why there's a $10,000 price tag attached to them. Understanding the context of member spending and being able to compare it across the board is essential. And there are really good tools now available to clubs to help to crunch this data. So the first one that we want to showcase for you today is MetricsFirst. So this is a new business intelligence platform that we released just about a year ago. It's just kind of coming out of its initial phases now, but basically what MetricsFirst does is it aggregates data from multiple sources. So it actually pulls information from multiple systems, not just the Jonas system, but a bunch of other systems out there as well, and brings it together in a single dashboard. So it's kind of the first time that clubs have had this access and visibility to information like this, where they can see it in one concrete place. And the nice thing is it's accessible anywhere, anytime. So I'm going to ask Scott to step in here now, and Scott's going to take us for a quick walkthrough of MetricsFirst.
Thanks, Trevor. So everybody should now see the MetricsFirst screen up at this point. So really, what is MetricsFirst if you compare it to reports that you get today? MetricsFirst differs in the sense that you're not running reports. The reports are finding you with MetricsFirst. The other thing is, gone are the days of having to stitch together a tea time report because you use a different system than the Jonas side and vice versa. This takes all those different data connectors, which we have 25 different systems we can tie into, and then allows us to stitch everything together to make running reports easily done. So again, this is all a web-based tool, fully responsive, so you could be anywhere so long as there's an internet connection, and this could be accessed through your desktop, your tablet, or even down to your mobile phone. So walking through the club, you'd have the ability to pull up any of these reports easily. From here, we'll go through and just touch on a few different reports at this point. We won't get into a full-on demo of this, just trying to give you an idea as to what this can do for you. But right now, you can have as many different logins as you like. I'm logged in as a general manager, so we can tailor this to each departmental manager. From here, as a general manager, I might only be concerned with a few KPIs, and rather than getting into the full nuts and bolts of it, I can just simply see that, hey, our AR is sitting pretty well. Color that green. We'll do a traffic light system with this. And then at that point, we can get into things like dining, turning that red. So, our sales only grew 2% over the same period last year. And then getting into the yellow side of it as well. Things that aren't maybe too much of a concern right now, but I may want to follow up on this later. Other options that we can do, meet and greet opportunities, flagging that we have a board member that's going to be in, so I may want to make myself available at 12:30 in the grow room, along with having birthdays noted here in case I want to be there again at 1:15 for Peter. And then if I did really want to get into the big data side of things and say, what makes Greg tick? I can click on his profile, and then at this point, it's now going to give me that 50,000-foot view of Greg and allowing me to really drill down on him to get more info. So from here, I can get his basic contact details. I can find out who his spouses are and any dependents linked to him. From there, when was the last time Greg was here? So as Trevor mentioned before, it's great that somebody might spend a lot of money, but if it's the first time they've been there in a year or so, might be a concern. But we can see here, Greg was just here 3 days ago, so not something that we need to worry about too much. But now we notice that Greg's going to be in the grow room. Maybe I want to find out, what does Greg eat when he's there? What does he drink? And I'm going to have that queued up and ready for him. So I can simply use any of these categories to break information down, going into something like entrees. And then you can see just on the right here, the left, it's changed that over for me. So now I can see when Greg's in the grow room, what is he ordering by total spending? Or maybe I want to get into what does he order the least or the most? And then I can quickly see that data.
So Scott, I want to jump in here with a couple of quick scenarios so we can put this kind of into real world terms for clubs. So let's say I work at a club where we've got lots of people out of the club on a regular basis. So my golf course is busy, there's lots of people, coming out to the club for activities. but my restaurant is still struggling. For some reason, I just can't quite seem to turn the same folks into the restaurant on a regular basis. Is there anything in MetricsFirst that can help me in a scenario like that? Is there any kind of data that could point me in the right direction?
For sure. So again, this can tie into a variety of different T systems and then into point of sale systems. So to answer that question, we can simply just come down here to this dining prospects for tea times. And what this is going to show is here's some people and how many times they've played golf. And then on that same day, how many times have they had a dining transaction? So we can see here, Harold, for example, has played 62 times so far, but has had absolutely no dining transactions at all. We want to filter this in a different way. We can then see someone like Matthew has played 45 days and had 22 transactions. So we've got a 51% opportunity to get him in more. So this then allows you to take that data. And if we click on these three dots, this gives us further options here. So one is maybe we want to download this to a CSV and we want to use it for an email marketing campaign that we want to push towards these members that, hey, don't forget, we've got a great breakfast program. We've got a great happy hour after you're done. Some way to entice them to get in there more so that, again, you're getting more of that wallet share.
Okay, that's great. Okay, another scenario for you then. Let's say I work at a club where attrition is a big concern. Typically, when members do leave, we really don't see it coming. So is there any way that MetricsFirst can really help me better understand my at-risk members?
Yep. So again, we do have the ability to create an at-risk profile, and this can be made up of a variety of different cubes. So we could do something like we have on the left here, members with over 50% spending on annual fees. So what this is really saying is that Robert, for example, has paid his $6,200 annual dues, but that's his total spending. So he hasn't spent $1 in the last 5 months. That's probably a concern. So again, being able to follow up with those people to find out, why is it that they haven't been to the club? Same thing, maybe you've got people that have had a 50% drop or more in spending. An example would be that wedding that you referenced earlier. Somebody like that would show up here if they had a wedding last year and hadn't had one this year, but the fact that you notice that, you touch base with that member, makes them feel that you're actually paying attention to what they're doing. And then from here, with all of these different risk profiles, we can tie it into one easily seen overall score. So at this point, this is taking all the different risk profiles, wrapping it into one to say, hey, Byron with 100, he's probably out the door, if not gone already. But it's hard to sometimes differentiate who these people are, especially if you're mobile and walking through the club. So we do have the ability to also display this in a gallery format. And then from that point, pulling through the pictures from the Jonas member file to identify that, hey, here are some people that are at risk. I might take a look at this, and as I'm walking through the club, I notice someone, I can stop and have that conversation, see if that does allow me to nip it in the bud and keep them as a member.
That's really cool. Okay. Thanks very much, Scott. I think we'll halt here from a MetricsFirst standpoint, and obviously we'll follow up at the end of the presentation with some questions. So let's continue on then. So we've really talked about MetricsFirst and that raw data and the comparison and analysis. What we want to talk about now is more of the experiential side. How do clubs get a better idea of what type of experiences their members are having at the club? I mean, typically, as a general manager, you can walk around the club, you can talk to people, you can ask them if they're enjoying themselves. Sometimes you'll get really explicit feedback, and other times you get, hums and haws, and you're not really sure if you're getting the full picture. This is where MemberInsight comes in. We released this platform about a year ago. We've currently got, I think, about 65 clubs running it all over North America. And really what MemberInsight is built to do is create and send automated surveys. So actually using transactions that happen at your club, like point of sale tickets, activity transactions, somebody plays around the golf, the system can automatically use these interactions at the club to send automated surveys to try to ascertain what their service experience was like. The system collects member feedback, it automates member follow-up, it automates to-do lists, and then it actually allows you to benchmark your club. So again, all really powerful data points that can help you better understand the member experience. So from here, I'm going to throw it back over to Scott, and he's going to jump into MemberInsight and give you a brief walkthrough of that as well.
All right, thanks, Trevor. So everybody should see up on the screen in just a second MemberInsight. So again, MemberInsight is a fully web-based tool, so this could be something that you're accessing from the four walls within the club, at home, although we don't encourage you to have to be working at home all the time, or even from mobile devices. So with MemberInsight, the reason we developed this platform is between Trevor and I, we've both been with Jonas for 14 years. We've traveled around to tons of different clubs. Every club does some way, shape, or form of a survey, whether it's an annual survey that you might be doing, or some clubs even do comment cards. The one thing that we noticed with a lot of clubs, even with comment cards, is there was no real follow-up or feedback from the members after that was given. So MemberInsight was developed to try and make things easier for the clubs, making it that the surveys are sent out automatically, follow-up is easily done, and then it's also actionable to show you what's going well and what's going poorly at the club. So some basics of this, getting into the settings, we don't want your members to know what MemberInsight is. So when we send all those surveys, it's branded as if it's coming from your club. It's not going to be some offshoot company that your members have never heard of, ending up in their junk, or them thinking it's spam and they ignore it. From there, we create 3 different types of surveys. So there's a global, or what we call a relational survey. And this is where you're trying to gauge the members' overall satisfaction with the club. So what do I think of ABC Country Club in general? And then from there, we can get into more of the departmental side of things. So this is where we would pull through all the different departments that you use at your club. And from here, each one of these surveys is going to run independently. And from here, going into the golf shop, for example, a member comes in, they could have a transaction in the golf shop. That's going to ask them what they think of the golf shop in general. If they had a transaction where they were actually playing golf, we could ask what they thought of the course. If you have multiple courses, defining which one it was. If I had a dining room transaction. So making it relevant and more likely for the member to participate because it's something that they have participated in, rather than me getting a survey to answer what I thought about the golf course and I'm a social member that never plays. So being more relevant and top of mind. From there, again, we know that not everyone has everything Jonas, so we don't want to exclude anyone. So we do offer what we call a one-off survey. So if you can get any of your data from a third-party system into a CSV, we can use that as a segment to then send those surveys off to find out about certain activities the members may be partaking in. From there, we do base this on the NPS system, so it's a how likely are you to recommend product, service, etc. But you do have the ability to ask more than just one question if you'd like. You're pretty much unlimited as to the number. And from here, building your questions is pretty simple. So giving it a title, maybe this is my food and beverage survey. From there, my introduction text that I want to place. And we can even get into adding page titles. So having the ability to say maybe this is for the patio, and then page number 2 is going to be for the grill room. And what this now allows me to do is ask questions that I can guide people through based on their answers. So I might ask a simple question of, have you dined on the patio in the past 3 months? And from here, the question types, I can either say, give me an essay, give me a short essay, a single choice, multiple choice, a grid, sliding scale, or star rating. So by doing a single choice, I now have the ability to say, hey, let's just make it yes or no. If you say, no, you haven't been on the patio in the past 3 months, then I want you to jump over to page number 2, because we just replaced the chairs and we want to find out what everyone's satisfaction is with the chairs. So we don't want to get anything that is out of whack. From here, going over to recipients, this is where we will stay in constant communication with your Jonas database. New members join, they come up here, members resign, they fall off, so nobody has to worry about any uploads and downloads of your members. And one thing that you're probably all asking is, we have got members that are going to come in every single day. We don't want them to get a survey every day. We've thought of that. So from here, you have the ability to say, okay, if somebody takes a survey today, when's the closest time we want them to possibly get another survey? And we can set that up here. From there, if they've taken the relational survey, how long until they get it again? And you can customize that. And then the minimum time between departmental surveys, you can also customize this here. There's also a couple other filters that you can do from the Jonas side of things to be able to say, great that we had 300 people in the dining room. We don't want to send the survey to 300 people. We only want it to go to 10% of that total audience. We'll take care of the grunt work to find out what that 10% should be. The other thing is, you might have a food and beverage survey. I came and I just got a coffee from the halfway house. We don't really want a survey to go for that. You can also set a dollar value to go along. So $25 or more, anything under that, we'll take those people out of it. And then where we start to get really powerful is what we call a closed loop process. So this is allowing you to lump people into 3 types of categories: a detractor, a passive, or a promoter. And you can create a process for each one of these, but the easiest way to showcase this is via the detractor. So what this allows you to do is say, okay, once we've got some bad feedback from someone, let's put some actions into place. So 1 hour, 2 days, 4 weeks, whatever you want to set this to, after that feedback's been given, let's just send this email. You can pose this to be whatever you'd like. And then from there, you might say, well, that's pretty much what everybody does. But now what we're going to do is actually do a follow-up and a to-do item. So now this is linking it to a departmental manager to say, hey, here's some people that had a bad time. You need to follow up on it. And then from here, we'll note the interactions to showcase that, yeah, we have followed up with them, or, we really need to get in touch. From there, we can start with Mike, see exactly where the transaction took place. I can read through the comments, see the keywords that we're pulling out of here. I can then call Mike if I need and put in my notes. And from here, put it as a failed attempt. Maybe I didn't get through to him, but it is going to showcase that there is an interaction now. So my boss has the ability to say, okay, Scott did follow up. Maybe a few days goes by, we haven't heard from Mike. Maybe we'll give him a quick email. I can click on email, hit send email. That'll launch my default email client, and it'll simply place this email address in the BCC line. So anything I compose in that email gets captured back here in the history. So again, we're not having to worry about any copying and pasting from emails, trying to make this a quick and easy process for everyone to note any notes that they have. We're getting close to the end. The dashboard, what this allows you to do is, Trevor mentioned there's some benchmarking. So this allows us to say, hey, let's take a look at how the club's doing internally. And once we've got that going well, let's see how we're doing externally as well. So I might say, let's just focus on our departments, and I'm the food and beverage manager. So I can say, let's just hone in on the restaurant. And we don't hide this ranking in the center here in any way. We want a bit of competition at the club. So as a restaurant manager, I see I'm the bottom of the pile. Spa's the top. I want to do everything I can to knock the Spa off that top rung. So we do make it easy as well to say, hey, based on the comments that are being put into the food and beverage surveys, here's what's lacking: staff and service. At that point, we can then drill down on this one neutral comment to find out exactly what that member noted and try and make things better. And then last but not least, we'll touch on some reports. We break them into 4 categories: analysis, process completion, your system health, and the survey questions. This is just allowing you to download everything to a CSV to do any type of quick filtering that you need. Your system health, this is just letting you know that, great, you might be sending out hundreds of surveys, but you're getting very bad deliveries based on bounce backs and so on, or just members not partaking. And the process completion is just making sure that staff members are following up with those unhappy members to try and make them happy again. And the analysis, probably the most powerful report, is the loyalty shift. And what this allows us to do is say, show me members that have taken the same survey at least twice and how their scores are different. So from here, we can see we're getting a slow decline in this specific department in the restaurant. So not something that we want to see. We want to see this on a hockey stick going up. But if we want to drill down at any point in time, we can click on this and it'll show us how many people went from being a happy member to a neutral member, from a neutral to an unhappy, and so on, to see what way we're actually going. And if we wanted to then drill down even further, we can find out exactly what those comments are and see if there's anything that is trending that we can maybe harness from there. Okay. Does that go to you, Trev?
All right, that's really good information, Scott. Thank you. Obviously, I think we can see the value in some of the reports and some of the dashboards and everything that are included there. So just to kind of summarize what we've talked about today before we get into our Q&A, we kind of started out this segment with what gets missed. What are clubs overlooking when it comes to really analyzing their data and working with it? So from a utilization standpoint, we showcased in MetricsFirst how we can actually identify specific types of prospects based on what they're doing at the club and then easily target them for follow-up. From an experiential standpoint, MemberInsight was built to help you better understand member satisfaction and take action based off of individual departments and service experiences. And then again, from a comparative standpoint, MetricsFirst really allows you to easily compare aspects of membership. So anything from individual member spending habits to the health of entire membership classifications. So we've kind of run the gamut with the two tools shown today. And we didn't want to get too in depth with either of the demos because we did want to leave it open for Q&A at the end of the session. So at this point, I want to let Trevor Klug jump in. I think he's got a couple of questions noted for us. And Scott and I will be responding to questions for the next few minutes.
All right, great job, guys. We had a question come in regarding MetricsFirst, and it was addressing the payroll softwares that MetricsFirst ties into, and are there other types of payroll softwares that MetricsFirst can tie into?
So currently, MetricsFirst ties in with ClubPay and also with the Jonas payroll system. Definitely open to speaking to any other payroll providers that are out there if we need to.
And we had another question come in regarding MemberInsight, and it was, is there ever any pushback or negative reactions from members when they get a survey?
Based on the clubs that we have that are running the system, and we've done some analysis and, the response rates, typically a survey response rate in the, outside world is in the 20-25% range. Most of the clubs that are using MemberInsight are seeing north of 70+%. So that shows you right there that the members are willing to give their feedback. The other thing that we do provide in every survey is the ability for members to unsubscribe. So if someone, wasn't happy with getting the surveys, they can simply unsubscribe. Same thing if they, called into the club, a staff member would have the ability to unsubscribe that member. So we can cut it off in a couple of ways. But again, based on the response rates that we see, the members are pretty open to partaking.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that as well and just say that we've actually, from a corporate standpoint with Jonas, we've moved away from traditional surveys over to using MemberInsight for our survey purposes. And while we're not doing transactional surveys, we're still doing more of an annual rolling type of survey. We've seen our response rates pretty much double since we've moved over to the single question platform and the NPS analysis. So it's been a really great tool for us internally because we can easily send out those to-do lists to departmental managers, and we're making sure that people get followed up with individually.
All right. We have a question coming from Jessica. Some members might not want to comment and don't necessarily want to respond. Can they opt out of the survey?
Yeah, so with that unsubscribe option, they can opt out of the surveys. The other thing is a member could rank the departmental survey or whatever type of survey it was, not necessarily having to give an actual comment if they don't want to. So a couple ways we could handle it.
We had a question come in from Emily. Are both of these modules available worldwide or just in North America?
So both are available worldwide. There's no real restrictions based on demographics at this point in time, so available to anyone.
I had another question come in about MemberInsight from James, wondering, is MemberInsight SQL-based, and is it compatible with DataMart?
So at this point, not compatible with DataMart. It is a SQL-based database that it runs off of. But if James has some specifics, probably best to email your local Jonas representative on that, and we can get in touch to go through exactly what you're looking to achieve.
Garrett also asked about MemberInsight, wondering, where does the benchmark data when comparing to other clubs come from for MemberInsight?
So it's only coming from clubs that are on the MemberInsight platform, and it's all anonymously done. So you have filters to be able to say, I want to compare myself to clubs in a specific country, state, province, city, town, etc. And then from there, if you're a yacht club, you might say, I don't really want to compare myself to a country club. So you could compare yourself to just yacht clubs. With that being said, configuring the club type, you also have the ability to say membership dues. So if you want to compare an apple to an apple, you can say we only want membership dues between X and Y range, and we'll show you those scores and how you stack up. But again, all anonymously done.
All right. And we had a question come in from Maureen. In order to trigger a survey, do we have to use the reservation systems?
No, so the only thing you have to use is the point of sale system. So if a member books a reservation with non-Jonas reservation software, but the transaction hits the Jonas point of sale, that's the trigger to then send that information to MemberInsight to send off a survey.
And kind of similar, but more directed towards metrics first. Stephanie asks, what Jonas modules, that is to say dining or events, do we need to have up and running on our system in order to have metrics first and create a completely integrated data dashboard?
So from the reservation sources, that would really be needed if you wanted to see like upcoming reservations by members and, you know, the meet and greet opportunity side of it. If you didn't have any of the reservation sources, you could still use Metrics First, which would allow you to then see data as to, you know, spending habits in the different outlets, looking at times of the day and so on. So the reservation pieces are not a must, but would definitely help with giving you the bigger picture.